Bring it.
Bring it.
Benavidez versus Morel in a night of title fights, February 1st.
Streaming live on ppv.com. Order now.
The Mighty Fight Hub TV here with the legend, the Mr. Jim Lampley. Jim, before we get to our business here, we want to let the fight fans out there know that the legendary Jim Lampley, you're the co-host as an exclusive viewer chat. Talk to us about your viewer chat, Jim.
ppv.com is a live chat entity. I sit at ringside and type text into a computer, as does Lance Bugmeyer of Boxing Scene, as does Dan Canobio of the family that created CompuBox, as does welterweight fighter Chris Algieri. We all offer our observations on what's going on in the fight. No makeup, no tuxedo, still get to talk about fights. It's a great way for me to come back to ringside, be a part of this wonderful cult, and ppv.com is, I think, increasingly becoming a must for boxing fans to have fun on fight night.
And when you talk about boxing fans having fun on fight night, huge fight Saturday night, Benavidez Jr. versus Morel. Talk to us about the fight. What do you think about things on fight night? How will this unfold?
When you tell me that we've got a light heavyweight fight that features two punchers, both of whom can box, and both of whom are unbeaten, with very big ambitions in front of them, I'm all in. This is, on paper, it's a great fight, and I think in the ring, it's likely to be a great fight too. They're going to throw down. They're going to have to throw down. This is a man's fight and a test for both of them, and it's very difficult to figure out who to favor. Benavidez may be the more punishing puncher, but Morel can punch. Morel may be the more skilled boxer, but Benavidez isn't a novice. He's been doing this since he's a kid. Has all the ingredients of a great fight.
You talk about all of that, and then you sprinkle in just a little bit of hatred. These guys have been going back and forth. I've talked to you privately and even sent you videos of the things that were going on in the press conferences with these guys. Talk to us about the build-up and what you expect to be an exciting night of boxing when two guys that just don't like each other get in the ring.
So you're telling me, and I trust you, you're telling me that this is not manufactured hatred, but they don't like each other. Well, that's good. You know, I mean, no prize fight ever suffered from that. Some of them have benefited enormously. Joe Frazier despised Muhammad Ali, and that helped that rivalry to a higher and higher level. So I think the fact that they have some animosity for each other is great going into this fight, and it suggests that if this fight is great, the rematch will also be fascinating and exciting.
A lot of folks have been critical of David Morrell Jr.'s record, saying that a guy with 11 fights, there's no way he's seasoned enough to go in there against David Benavidez. What do you think about David Morrell's record and how it relates to his ability to withstand the pressure of a guy so seasoned?
Well, he has a Cuban amateur background, and Cuban amateur background is tantamount to professional experience and professional exposure. So I don't think that there's a big deficit in David Morrell's background. And his trainer, Ronnie Shields, is one of the veteran pros in the sport, knows everything about it, etc. So while Benavidez on paper has more experience, I think Morel is probably equally prepared for the task of Saturday night.
And when we talk about the task on Saturday night, let's be clear. We've seen guys of good merit, of good records, of good resumes come in against David Benavidez, and none of those things have mattered. We watched him bruise and beat down a very seasoned Caleb Plant. We watched him outright humiliate and embarrass Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. How does David Morrell stop himself from being put on the latest hit list and posterized by Benavidez?
That's part of what's fascinating about Saturday night. The very first time I saw David Benavidez live was against Demetrius Andrade. I didn't think it was possible to blow up Andrade the way David did. David did it easily. Didn't take all that long either. So obviously that's visible now. Morel has seen it. He knows that David Benavidez is capable of detonating a skilled southpaw. And obviously, he'll have to do better than Andrade did, and I'm sure he will.
You know, and on to another very compelling fight in September. We get a very, very exciting matchup with Terrence Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez getting together. What do you think about that fight? I've talked to you about it before. In fact, we spoke about that fight after Andrade and Benavidez, and you said, hey, I have concerns about that fight. Talk to us about it.
Well, the fight is the product of Terrence Crawford's towering and unquenchable ambition. If Terrence Crawford weren't the person that he is, that fight wouldn't be taking place. But he is extremely passionate about constantly boosting his own image and demonstrating to everyone in the sport that he can do things that people never thought he could do. And that goes all the way back to his first big exposure, which was on an HBO pay-per-view here in Las Vegas, where he was put in as a kind of throw-in opponent against a South American prospect named Bradis Prescott, whom Top Rank expected to go on to do big things. Tim Bradley had sparred with Terrence Crawford, and he told Top Rank, put him in against Prescott. I think he'll do better than you think he'll do. And he won the fight start to finish. He cleaned Prescott up, and that was the first step on the road to becoming what he is now, which is #1 pound-for-pound fighter in boxing. So there's a certain logic to the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in boxing wanting to match up with the #1 dollar-for-dollar attraction. Fighting Canelo Alvarez is probably the biggest money that Terrence Crawford can ever make in his career. Fighting Terrence Crawford looks to Canelo like easy money because there's a 21-pound weight gap starting out here between Crawford's 147 and Canelo's 168. But don't try to tell Terrence Crawford there's something he can't do. He does not believe that.
On to other news also, Jim. So much exciting news in boxing. There's so much to talk about. Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Part 2, the lawsuit, so many things. The Peds, that night in New York, an exciting fight. The first fight was Devin Haney obviously losing. Then we had the steroid controversy. What happens next? We have David Benavidez absolutely blowing the pads away behind us here.
Well, once again, these two guys don't like each other, all right? Haney and Garcia, that has now become a blood feud. And it's not just a blood feud between the two fighters, it's a blood feud between their camps. It's a blood feud between their families, et cetera, et cetera. So there's going to be a lot of spectator interest. And, you know, in addition to Ostarine, the drug for which Garcia was busted, there was also the matter of ignoring the weigh-in and weighing in 5 pounds over the weight and carrying a weight advantage into the ring. So, you know, Haney has a lot of incentive to come back and win a fight that he feels was unjustifiably taken away from him the first time. And Garcia has a lot of incentive to reverse and embarrass all the negative headlines about him. They'll be tremendously motivated. They're both good fighters. It should be a great fight.
There you have it. Words from the legend. This is Hayes with Fight Hub. Mr. Jim Lampley, thank you as usual, Jim. Appreciate you, brother.